Do you feel like you are struggling to ignore the narcissist? That literally, that trauma bond, the physiological addiction to the narcissist is really stopping you from moving forward? Well, in this episode, I'm going to give you 3 simple steps to support you in ignoring the narcissist and to really help propel you forward. Hi everybody, my name is Caroline Strawson and I'm a positive psychology, trauma coach and somatic therapist, helping people just like yourself move from post-traumatic stress to post-traumatic growth after narcissistic abuse. Because I know what it's like to feel stuck, because I've been exactly where you are. And this is why I do all of these videos, because I know that many of you will be sat there just suddenly realizing this, or you're stuck even years later, because I know I certainly was for a long time too. So if you're new to my channel, massive warm welcome. If you're a regular visitor, welcome again. Please do make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell, because I drop videos every single week. And also, I just want to say, don't forget, it's not just YouTube that I'm on. I have a podcast called the Narcissistic Trauma Recovery Podcast, and we've had millions of downloads now. And also come over and follow me on Instagram, and also I'm on Facebook. And if you look in the show notes below, you will see I have a free Facebook group and also an incredible trauma-informed low-cost monthly healing membership called Thrivers, which is just amazing. It just lights me up, the women that are in that group, really focused on their healing and the support. And I go live there every week where you can ask me real-time questions. And if you want to know anything about that, check out below. You can have a good read and a nose about that too. So what are these 3 things then? 3 top tips to help you learn how to ignore the narcissist. Now this could be whether it's a parent, a partner, any particular person in your life that you suspect is a narcissist. What can you do to really move forward and learn some tips on how to ignore them? Because I know what it's like. You get really drawn into it. I know certainly for me, when I was going through my divorce and I'd be sitting at home of an evening, the trauma bond was strong. I'd get a text coming through and we'd be like ping pong back and forth for that evening as well. My whole evening was ruined, yet the trauma bond, that physiological addiction, it was like, that feels better now. In a weird way, right? But that's the trauma responses that we go into when we've been in relationships with a narcissist. So top tip number 1 is actually to set up what we call either no contact if you don't have any children and you don't need to have any contact with the narcissist, or extreme modified controlled contact. So what do I mean by that? Well, many of you may have a narcissistic parent and it may be impossible not to have any contact at all. Maybe you have children together, and I get it. It's an impossibility not to have any kind of contact, and you know, the courts wouldn't like it. And equally, you still need to feel like a good daughter, a good son when it comes to your parents, even though they may be narcissistic as well. So how do you manage that? So we set up what we call extreme modified contact. And what that means is you need to be in control of the contact that you do have. Now, if you have children, for instance, then, and I've done a really great, there's another video on this where I'll go into more detail about how to parallel parent with a narcissist. So go and check that video out, because that will really help you and go into more detail with this. But the first thing to do is email. Set up either pure email contact other than when your children are with the narcissist. You can unblock your phone in case there's any emergencies, or go and buy one of those cheap old brick phones where literally you can't text, because it'd take like an hour just to say hello. But what it means is you've still got an emergency phone, but your phone that you are seeing regularly, that's probably sat down right next to you. Well, we don't want any messages and texts coming through there. Email, I'd really recommend creating a brand new email address for your narcissistic ex-partner, and that is the mode of communication. And the reason why I say that is if you set up a completely separate one, it means you have to choose to go in and check, as opposed to, again, they could just come in regularly to your phone. And if they do that, you're kind of always on edge, waiting, like every time you check your emails, is there one from them? And I know what it's like, because I've been there, and I know we get stuck feeling like that too. Equally, if it's a parent, and this is the same again, what we need to think about is if they say call you up, do you need to answer the phone? Or what I have done in the past is I've let it go to voicemail, and then I have chosen when to call back. And that very often might be 10 minutes before I have to dish up the tea for the children, for instance. So I might say, hey Dad, I saw you left a message earlier. How are you? Everything okay? I've only got 10 minutes because I'm literally about to dish up the tea in a moment. So I know I'm keeping that conversation really short, and you can even do it shorter than that. Hey Dad, hey Mom, I'm literally just about to go outside the front door. I've just got to go and get something, but I saw you left a message. I saw you left a voicemail. Is everything okay? And what you've done is you've set the conversation up to be very, very short. You're not kind of just there for them to behave in a certain way and you come off the phone frazzled, and of course they are then okay because they're back in control with that manipulation too. So pick and choose your times. The other thing to remember is as well, you want, if they're going to come round to your house, and this often is if it was your parents, you set very clear boundaries around all of that. Boundaries are going to be your best friend when it comes to this. Equally, pick and choose when you go around there. Are there other people there? Have you got some allies that you can have when you go? So just really think about when you set up this, the contact that you do have needs to be very, very controlled in that scenario as well. Okay, so that is tip number 1. So what's the next one then? What is tip number 2? So tip number 2 is what we call the grey rock method. So what does that mean? Some of you may have heard of it, some of you may not. So grey rocking is basically when you have to have communication with the narcissist, and this can either be extreme modified contact, or you may have face-to-face contact, maybe at handovers, or maybe you have to go around to your parents for dinner or something, you know, family events. What is the grey rock? Well, grey rock is almost like, imagine you are this grey, boring rock. Boring, boring, boring. No emotion, no information. Literally, it is like you are grey. No emotion. I'm not telling you anything about my life. I'm not giving any emotion away. I am one answer questions to whatever you are saying, but I'm not giving information. Because very often when we're stuck in relationships with narcissists, we want them to validate us because of our own inner child wounds. So we get in this cycle of justification and conversation. Grey rock is really important because it really sets if before you've always been giving supply, narcissistic supply, which is the narcissist's drug of choice. But when we do the grey rock method, we're taking away their supply, which is control over you, which is you behaving in a certain way to feed their needs. So grey rock really allows them to think, I'm not getting any supply off this person. They may escalate their behavior slightly to start off with because this will be alien to them, but they will seek out, sadly, somebody else to get that narcissistic supply. They'll shift it away from you. If they're not getting it from you, they'll try and it will escalate a little bit, but then they'll go and find it from somebody else. So extreme modified contact, grey rock method, boring, boring, but be as boring as you possibly can. Again, no information, no emotion. It's literally if they ask you a question, you're hardly answering it and putting it back onto them because they love talking about themselves at the end of the day, don't they? So always turn it back. We don't tell them anything that is going on in your life. They don't need to know. They don't deserve to know. And then the third tip for you to ignore the narcissist is actually to work on your own healing. The more you work on your own healing means the less you need that external validation from them. It doesn't matter what they say. So the more you start to work on your own inner child wounds as to why you feel like you need others externally to validate your sense of worth, when we heal that wound, we no longer seek that from the narcissist. So when they still behave in the same way, which they will, because they will never change, it means you don't get triggered within your nervous system to then have to react in a certain way. You can stay grey rock, you can stay with your modified communication methods. So I hope that really, really helps. It is possible. I'm not saying that it's easy, and I'm not saying that it will happen overnight, but if you set these things in place, extreme modified contact, grey rock when you have contact, and then work on your healing, I absolutely promise you things will start to feel better, because all of that will actually really help with that trauma bond, the addiction to those hormones that we feel when we're in that narcissistic abuse cycle, the oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin when we're in the love bombing and the feel good phase, and then the cortisol, the adrenaline, the norepinephrine. And we literally get addicted to that hormonal cycle when we're in a relationship with a narcissist. So just because we're trying to then move on and break free from the narcissist doesn't mean that physiological addiction isn't there. So setting up no contact or extreme modified contact, grey rocking in this, and also working on your own healing, all of those three will really help you ignore the narcissist, not give them the narcissistic supply that they need, and then they will go and find it from somewhere else. So I hope that's been really, really helpful. Let me know in the comments below where you are on your healing journey. Is there anything else that I can help and support you with? You know, I really value that you take this time to watch, and I really try and look at this through a trauma-informed lens. I'm not here to do these videos to make you feel worse. I'm here to do them to help educate you and to give you hope and inspire you that if you saw me, you know, 10, 11 years ago wearing grey baggy tracksuits, I was like grey rocking myself, literally no emotion, because I was so highly dissociated and really in a freeze trauma response as well. So I know what it is like. I genuinely do. And literally my whole life is dedicated to help people just like yourself now. So please, you know, come and find me somewhere, whether it be on Instagram, whether it be on Facebook. Come and join Thrivers. It's only $7 a month. It's so low cost, but you literally get so much value for all of that as well. I did one of my live Q&As in there yesterday, and sort of 90 minutes later, I was answering real-time questions for people in their scenario. So imagine if you have a problem right now, for instance, and you're thinking, where are the answers? Who do I ask? And you might post in groups and things like this. Imagine if you could come in live every single week and ask me a direct question, and I will answer it specifically for you, because that's what can happen in Thrivers. $7 a month. Yes, it's a crazy price, but I want you to be in a really positive, supportive community. And it really is a different vibe from the free groups that are out there as well. It's focused on healing. It's focused on you. And, you know, I'm very proud of all the Thrivers that we have as well. So take care. Hope you enjoyed this. Remember those 3 top tips, and I'll see you on the next video.